Okay, so you're running B&B Roustabout Inc. out there in Vernal, Utah. Things are busy, obviously, keeping the operations smooth. But you're smart, and you need the bigger picture, too. How do you sift through all that industry talk and figure out what actually matters for your business right now?
Exactly. And that's what we're aiming for today.
Yeah, that's our focus for this deep dive.
We've pulled together a really targeted set of insights just for you, for B&B. Think of it like your personalized briefing. We're drawing from a few key places: a 2022 Oilfield Services analysis, Mercer Capital's look at industry players, a World Economic Forum report on potential, some practical advice on tech pitfalls, and even a paper on how service contracts are changing.
Precisely. So, our mission here is pretty straightforward, but really vital. Understand where the oilfield services industry is, where it's heading, the big forces at play, and critically, what all that means for B&B Roustabout operating right there in Vernal.
Right. We're looking at everything from, the overall health of the sector down to the nitty-gritty of technology and how you actually structure your deals.
And the mix of sources is key, isn't it?
I think so. You get the high-level view, like how the sector did recently, the financial nuts and bolts from Mercer, then the WEF take on operational stuff, plus real-world tech advice and those shifting contract dynamics. It's a good blend.
Okay, so let's get right to it. That 2022 Oilfield Services report, it painted a pretty optimistic picture, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a 75% jump in sales,
Yeah.
profits quadrupling, that's significant.
Definitely significant. And it specifically mentions sustainable chemical solutions as helping drive that.
It did, yeah. That was highlighted as a contributor. And it also mentioned the huge focus on safety. SET training hours were way up.
Okay, so for B&B Roustabout, what should they make of that sales jump first, especially operating there in Vernal?
Well, that surge strongly suggests a pretty healthy demand environment overall in 2022. If your clients in the Vernal area saw similar boosts, it likely meant more opportunities for B&B services. Simple as that, really. More activity, more work.
Right. But what about that sustainable chemistry part? How does that play in for a company like B&B?
That's interesting, isn't it? It signals a shift in the market. Maybe driven by environmental regs, maybe performance, probably both. For a regional player like you, it could actually be an opportunity.
How so? Like, jump on it early.
Kind of, yeah. Look, the bigger guys might be slower to shift their whole product line. A more nimble company, like B&B, could maybe explore partnerships with companies making these newer chemistries. You position yourself as forward-thinking, meeting a need that might be growing right there in the vernal market.
Okay, so it's not just green, it's potentially better solutions clients want.
Exactly. And it could be a competitive edge.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned safety too. The report highlighted almost 15,000 SHE training hours, average of 24 days per employee. That's a lot.
It is. And that investment, it's not just ticking a box. It's fundamental to your reputation. E&P companies scrutinize this stuff. For B&B, showing a really strong safety commitment, maybe even exceeding the average, that's a powerful selling point in Vernal.
Right, it gives clients confidence, minimizes their risk.
Precisely. It says you're a reliable, responsible partner. Invaluable.
Okay, good point. Let's pivot to technology now. That 2022 report also talked up real-time remote monitoring. Let's dig into this. For a company like B&B working around Vernal, why is this important? What are the real benefits?
Okay, this is where safety and efficiency really meet.
Yeah.
Think about Utah. You might have remote sites, maybe challenging weather, right?
Yeah.
Remote monitoring means maybe fewer people need to be physically in potentially hazardous spots. Think high H2S, high pressure, huge safety win.
Yeah, definitely see that. Less exposure.
But it's more than just safety. It means catching problems early, before they cause downtime for your client. It means optimizing production because you have constant data. It even helps you plan better logistics, maintenance schedules for your gear out on site.
So it's about smarter operations, fewer surprises, even in remote spots. Makes sense. The report also brought up Aquaborne, that water-based friction reducer, tying back to sustainability. We touched on this, but maybe elaborate a bit more. Why keep these chemistries on the radar?
Sure. It really boils down to where your clients are heading. Are they facing pressure, maybe regulatory, maybe from their own investors, to be more sustainable? If they are, or likely will be, B&B needs to be ready.
Proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. Understanding these newer, greener chemistries, maybe finding ways to offer services related to them, it shows you're thinking ahead. It keeps you aligned with client needs, maybe even opens doors to new types of work, or strengthens the relationships you already have in the vernal area.
Okay, all right. So we've got a feel for some current trends, but let's pull back a bit. The Mercer Capital analysis helps define things. What is an oil field service company fundamentally? How does B&B fit in that big picture?
Yeah, Mercer breaks it down well. Basically, OFS companies provide the essential products and services for upstream oil and gas, everything from finding it to getting it out. They stress that OFS companies like B&B are crucial outsourcing partners for the E&P companies, the operators.
So B&B is like a specialized team the EMPs in the Uinta Basin count on.
That's a good way to put it. You bring specific skills, equipment, services they might not have in-house, or it's more efficient for them to outsource. You fill a really vital role in that whole chain.
And Mercer mentioned the history, how OFS really grew after the late 90s oil price slump and those big EMP mergers. Why is that bit of history relevant now for B&B?
Because that shakeup really cemented the outsourcing model.
Yeah.
EMPs focused on their core and relied on specialized companies like B&B for everything else to boost efficiency and manage costs. Understanding that history underlines why your kind of specialized expertise is still so valuable today in places like Vernal. The model depends on companies like yours.
Okay, so what drives success then? What are the key things B&B should be tracking to see which way the wind's blowing in the market?
Well, Mercer points to the big one. E&P capital and operating spending. That's the main driver for OFS revenue. And that spending, of course, is tied heavily to what they think oil and gas prices will do.
Right, the price outlook.
But there are more immediate indicators, leading indicators, that B&B should watch closely, especially locally. Keep an eye on the capital expenditure budgets the E&Ps active in the Uinta Basin announce. Track rig counts, definitely, but maybe even more importantly now, well, counts because of pad drilling.
Ah, yeah, pad drilling's big around Vernal, so well count is a better metric these days.
Often, yes. It reflects the actual drilling activity more directly with pads. Also watch day rates for equipment and services, and maybe the backlogs reported by the bigger OFS players. Those give you a sense of overall demand.
Good practical indicators. Now, everyone knows oil and gas is cyclical, booms, busts. How does that specifically hit oilfield services, and what can B&B do to sort of ride those waves?
Yeah, Mercer really emphasizes that cyclicality. It's just baked into the OFS world. It makes forecasting revenue really tough because oil prices bounce around. Then you have tech changes, politics, geopolitics, all sorts of things messing with predictions.
So what's the strategy for B&B? Just hold on tight.
Well, partly. But it means you need to be agile, financially disciplined. You need to try and distinguish short-term blips from longer-term trends and really, really focus on your specific patch, Vernal, the Uinta Basin. That EIA study Mercer referenced, it showed how much regional geology and specifics impact costs and results. So know your basin, know your own company's history through past cycles too. That helps with planning.
Deep local knowledge is key. Got it. Okay, let's shift to how work gets done. The paper on service contracts, it talked about some shifts away from just fee for service.
Yeah.
What are the main models B&B should be aware of now?
Right, the landscape is evolving.
Yep.
We're seeing more integrated service contracts. The service company takes on more scope, shares more risk, but also potentially more reward with the operator. Then there are partnering agreements, more about long-term collaboration. Risk service contracts where the OFS company puts more skin in the game up front.
More skin in the game. Sounds risky.
It can be. There are also production enhancement contracts focused on boosting output and production sharing, though that's less common for pure service firms. The big trend, though, driven by price swings and trickier fields, is definitely towards more collaboration and shared risk-reward.
Okay, these integrated deals sound like a big step up. For a smaller regional company like B&B, is that even realistic or relevant?
It's definitely relevant to understand the trend, even if bidding solo on a massive integrated project isn't feasible right now. It might push B&B to think about collaborating with other specialized service providers in the Vernal area. Maybe together you can offer a more complete package.
Ah, like forming alliances.
Exactly. Or it just reinforces the need for really strong, trust-based relationships with your clients, maybe leading to more partnering-style deals, even on a smaller scale. Being adaptable to these models is probably going to be important for B&B's future.
Adaptability. Okay, so with all this change, what are the main roadblocks, the big challenges OFS companies, including B&B, need to watch out for?
Several things come up. That increased risk in some of the newer contract types is definitely one. Competition is always there, especially from the big national or international players who might push into your region.
Yeah, always a factor.
There's also the challenge of balancing your core expertise, what B&B does best, with potentially needing to fit into these broader integrated projects.
Yeah.
And underlying everything is that darn oil price volatility. It just creates ongoing uncertainty.
And so for B&B, it's about knowing how those big issues play out locally in Utah.
Precisely. And identifying your unique strengths, maybe service quality, local knowledge, responsiveness to navigate whatever comes.
Okay, challenge is understood. What about strategies for success? That Deloitte study mentioned in the contracts paper had some ideas, right? What should B&B focus on to thrive?
Yeah, Deloitte basically grouped strategies into 3 buckets.
Right.
First, help your customers save money. Find ways B&B services can lower their overall costs. Second, look inward. Make your own operations super efficient, lean, internal cost control.
Always good advice.
And the third was more about traditional business strategy, maybe expanding your service offerings slightly if there's a clear need in vernal, finding specific niches where B&B really excels, or even, strategic partnerships or maybe small acquisitions if the right fit came along. It's about delivering clear value while being really tight on your own costs.
Value and efficiency. Makes sense. Let's circle back to tech one more time, that white paper on pitfalls.
Yeah.
What are the common tech mistakes B&B absolutely needs to avoid?
Good question. The paper highlights a few key traps. One is ending up with a patchwork of systems that don't talk to each other, makes things like invoicing a nightmare, kills visibility. Another is clunky processes like quote to cash that get messed up easily, especially if you have staff turnover.
Yeah, process friction is killer.
Definitely. Also, not having good mobile tools for the field crews hinders getting real-time data. And finally, picking tech that's too rigid that locks you in and makes it hard to add new stuff later.
So the takeaway for B&B is?
Prioritize integrated software if you can. Something that gives you visibility from quote to payment, automates workflows, lets field staff input data easily via mobile, and is flexible enough to grow with you. Get the foundation right.
A solid foundation, not just shiny objects. What about the future stuff like IoT, AI? Should B&B be dabbling there yet?
Maybe not full-scale AI deployment tomorrow, but it's worth understanding the potential. Simple IoT sensors on equipment for basic monitoring. Maybe looking at entry-level AI tools for optimizing maintenance. Exploring these things, maybe small pilot projects, could offer an edge down the road as the tech gets cheaper and easier to use. Stay curious about it.
Okay, stay informed. Lastly, that World Economic Forum report on capital project problems. The big operators face issues like bad budgets, delays, staffing. How does that affect a service provider like B&B?
It has definite ripple effects. If those big projects in the Uinta Basin hit snags delays, budget cuts that can slow down the demand for B&B services, maybe even impact getting paid on time. It's interconnected.
So their problems can become your problems.
They can. But flip it around. If B&B builds a reputation for being super reliable, efficient, helping operators avoid some of those pitfalls on the parts you control, that makes you incredibly valuable. You become part of the solution.
Positioning B&B as a problem solver.
Exactly. And the report also mentioned that service companies and producers sometimes see project priorities differently. So really clear communication with your clients about their goals is vital. Aligning with them is key. The WEF also suggested longer-term strategic contracts could help, which might mean more stable work for reliable partners like B&B.
Understanding the client's pressures helps you be a better partner. Makes total sense.
That's the crux of it.
Okay, let's try and wrap this all up then. For B&B Roustabout Inc. in Vernal, Utah, what are the absolute must-know takeaways from this whole deep dive?
All right, number 1, strategically use technology, not just for flash, but for real gains in efficiency and safety. 2, keep a close eye on the industry cycles and those key local indicators, E&P budgets, while counts in the Uinta Basin. That's vital for planning.
Got it. Tech and tracking. What else?
3, be ready to adapt to changing contract models. Understand the move towards integration and risk sharing, even if you participate through partnerships initially. 4, know the industry-wide challenges, like competition and price volatility, but focus on how they impact your specific market.
Adapt. Know the challenges.
And finally, 5, relentlessly focus on cost effectiveness, both for your clients and internally. And always be open to smart strategic partnerships that could strengthen your position or expand what you can offer.
So yeah, keeping tabs on these bigger trends isn't just academic. It directly shapes how a local company like B&B needs to operate and plan for the future.
Absolutely. It's about navigating the present and positioning for what's next.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you for B&B Roustabout to chew on. Based on everything we've picked around today, the tech, the contracts, sustainability, efficiency, what's one concrete action, one specific step you could take, maybe starting next week, to better position your company for success in this evolving landscape right there in Vernal?
That's a great question to ponder.
Give that some thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.